So emotional symptoms. When you've been betrayed, what are common emotional symptoms that you're going to experience? Well, you're going to go through a time of shock, denial, disbelief. So just think of finding out that your partner cheated on you, that your partner's been lying to you, that your partner's been texting somebody else and sharing their heart with somebody else, that your partner spent all your money. You are in shock. You just can't believe it. Then you can go to a deep grief. You are just overwhelmed with a deep sadness, often even a hopelessness. Life just is so negative, painful, dark. But then you can go to that deep anger, rage. Then you can go to just fear. What now? What's going to happen in my life? And everything is scary. And then you can get paranoid and almost have this kind of terror that you live with. Some go to guilt. I must have done something wrong. It's probably my fault. And that's that self-blame stuff that we just talked about. Others go, it triggers their shame at a deep level. See, that proves I'm not worth anything. I'm not lovable. I'm not valuable. If I was, they wouldn't have done this. And so it just reinforces the deep, deep shame messages. Others just go numb. It's too much to take in. They just go to not feeling anything. And they detach from others. They just don't want to be with anybody. They just want to be alone. And they're just numb. Then it can lead to just this haunting loneliness. That the person I thought loved me has betrayed me. I am all alone, and it is overwhelming. And then often a deep feeling of being violated. Then another thing that begins often to happen emotionally with people is after they've been betrayed, they have a great deal of difficulty regulating their emotions. So all of a sudden they have massive mood swings several times a day, or they get triggered and they just go from 0 to 100 in a nanosecond and they can't stop it. So emotional regulation becomes a problem. Others then begin to struggle with depression, anxiety, worry, panic attacks. Some go to this apathy. They lose all motivation for life. The things that they used to enjoy, they don't do anything for them anymore. They're just blah. Some go to suicidal ideation. What's the point of living? And then there's a term that's called alexithymia. And this would come out of a child being betrayed in complex trauma. And it's also called emotional blindness. And so it's a neuropsychological phenomenon characterized by significant challenges in recognizing, expressing, and describing one's own emotions. So this is a person who, as a child, is betrayed. It's too much to deal with, so they just shut down. And they don't feel anymore. And then they disconnect from their emotional world. And they don't even know how to recognize emotions anymore. They don't know what emotions are. They don't even feel emotions. That's alexithymia, and that can happen out of betrayal trauma. Then there's cognitive symptoms of betrayal trauma. And so again, if you've been cheated on, etc., what can happen in the days and months that follow is you can have flashbacks and nightmares. You can relive it. And you can be going through your day and all of a sudden have intrusive thoughts. You just start thinking about it and you didn't even want to think about it, but it just intrudes into your thought life. Another thing is that you can begin to have memory issues. So you forget stuff, short-term stuff. Other people is deep confusion. And it's almost at an existential level. Like, what's the purpose of living? Who am I? Do I matter? Who cares about life? All of those questions, deep confusion about where you're going in life, what to do next. It just becomes this very confusing time. And then you can become very difficult to concentrate. And so you get distracted easily, you just can't get focused. That's a common symptom after a person's been betrayed. Then dissociation. It's almost like you feel detached from reality. You're just zombie mode. You go through the motions of life, but you're not there. For some, there's even a sense of time slows down or even stops. They're just not connected to the present. Others then have trouble making decisions. They don't trust their ability to make decisions anymore because they've just been betrayed by somebody they thought they could trust, somebody they decided to trust. And so it really starts to mess up their confidence in making decisions for themselves. And then for many, it unleashes kind of these persistent negative beliefs about life. They get really cynical. They get cynical about themselves, about the world, about people. And so some of the persistent negative stuff can be shame messages. They go right back to the inner critic. It's your fault. You're not good enough. You don't matter. They can't see at that moment that it's made up of all lies because it feels like the truth. Somebody just betrayed me. And so shame messages get louder. And with that is, I guess I'm just a burden to everybody. I guess nobody's ever going to want me. I just don't matter. People only show love to me when it's convenient, when they can get something from me. And those messages spin around. And then you can go to nobody's there for me. Nobody can be trusted in the world. I'm all alone. And that just gets darker and darker. But those are the kind of thoughts that begin to fill the brain and create constant chatter in the brain. Then there's some physical symptoms that can happen after you've been betrayed. And these, I think, are really important to understand. So again, just think you just find out your husband's cheated on you. You can go to physically shaking. And then you can just be constantly agitated. You can't sit still. You can't calm yourself. Your legs jiggling all the time. Then you can just be sweating a lot. Way more than normal. That happens with people. You can then start having panic attacks that come out of nowhere. Some go to either constipation or diarrhea. It just throws off their whole gastrointestinal system. Some insomnia, or they just want to sleep all the time. Some, they get startled really easily. The slightest little thing and they jump. Others find their blood pressure goes up or they have a racing heartbeat. Others, all of a sudden you get aches and pains, you get muscle tension, you get inflammation. All of a sudden that happens. Or you get migraines, headaches that you don't normally get, or you're just tired all the time. So you can sleep all the time, or you can't sleep at all, but you're tired all the time. So those are some of the physical symptoms that can happen right after you realize you've been betrayed. That leads to behavioral symptoms that often happen with people that have been freshly betrayed. So I just want to isolate from people. I can't face anybody. I don't want to have to explain. I don't want to have to talk. So I'm going to isolate. And then crying frequently. Just can't stop crying. Decrease in self-care. Don't take care of yourself. Don't shower. Don't eat properly. Don't sleep properly. All of that can happen. Don't do the things that you used to do as healthy self-care or escapes, healthy hobbies. You just can't work as much. And so there's a decrease in your work productivity. There's an increase or decrease in your eating. We've talked about that. For some, there's an increase in aggressiveness, in reactivity. The person says the slightest little thing to you and you go into attack mode and you lash out. That can happen. Others just spend all their time on social media. That just numbs them out. They just scroll through page after page of social media. Others go into just buying stuff. And so they make all kinds of unnecessary purchases. It's a way of numbing. It's a way of getting out of that pain for a while. So others go to alcohol and drugs. It's a way of numbing. It's a way of getting out of the pain. Some go to reckless behavior. They drive radically. They all of a sudden do stuff that potentially is quite risky. They could die, but part of them doesn't care. If I die, I die. And so there's an increase in risky behavior. Then there's relationship symptoms that come out of it, and they're more long-term for people. So they have been betrayed. Now they are looking at starting a relationship again, just a friendship. It's not necessarily romantic, could be, but it's not necessarily. But all of a sudden they find that they're struggling to open up. They're struggling with any kind of deeper intimacy. That just scares them. They can even be suspicious of kindness. So somebody's super kind to them and they go, are they grooming me? What do they want? Is there a hidden agenda here? And so they have huge trust issues. They don't know if they can ever trust again. So they're suspicious of everything. And then if they do get in a relationship, they have difficulty maintaining that relationship. Every little thing the person does, they overanalyze, they look for negative, they look for signs of betrayal, they pull away, they test the other person. And so they have difficulty maintaining relationships. And then if the other person is wanting to get closer and get to know them better, they're not comfortable with that, so they're kind of resisting that or pushing people away. And then they can have jealousy issues. They start to get in a relationship, and every time that person talks to somebody else, it stirs up stuff and they get super jealous, and that can cause trouble. And then they can have a ODD, oppositional defiance. So they get in a relationship and the person says, I think you should do this, or here's what I think we should do. And it's almost like something is triggered inside of them and I want to do the opposite. I am not going to follow anybody's advice. I'm not going to trust anybody's advice. I have to make all my decisions by myself. Then for some, now when they get in a relationship, to them, if I'm not going to be betrayed by you and I'm going to be able to trust you, then there can be no boundaries. You can never say no to me. You can never say you need some personal space. And so they resist boundaries. And boundaries to them proves you aren't loyal, you don't love me, you don't care. So what you can see is betrayal trauma sets a person up to have great difficulty in future relationships. And that is what most people realize is their biggest challenge as they come out of betrayal trauma. There's one other thing that happens with betrayal trauma that includes sexual abuse. And that is there's sexual symptoms in the future. And so there can be an aversion to sex. Sex just makes me feel dirty. Sex makes me feel awful. It's disgusting. And so it just triggers so much painful stuff. I don't want sex. Or if I do have sex, I do it out of obligation. It's not something I enjoy, but I do it out of obligation. Some become just uncomfortable with any physical touch, sexual touch. Doesn't even have to be intercourse. It's just touch me in any way that feels sexual, and I just feel this revulsion inside. Some aren't able to ever achieve orgasm again. Some during sex, they just check out of their body. They feel distant, they dissociate. Others, they regularly have sexual flashbacks, dreams about the sexual abuse, intrusive thoughts about the sexual abuse. Others have actually physical pain in their sexual organs. That is an ongoing thing. And then others have shame, sexual shame about what happened, body shame about what happened. And so there's huge ongoing results or ramifications that come out of betrayal trauma related to sexual abuse. There's one other area that is significant for some, and that's where that betrayal trauma is experienced in your relationship with your higher power. That you feel God has let you down, God has betrayed you. And so all of a sudden you're dealing with anger with God. So these are spiritual symptoms. You blame your higher power for your problems. And so you lose interest in prayer, in meditation, in going to church, in meeting with other people in your spiritual support group. You question everything. You just feel totally abandoned by God. You doubt that God even exists, but yet you fear that God's upset with you and is going to judge you, and that other people in your religion are judging you. And so that's got massive ramifications as well. So I hope you're really getting a feel for the fact that this betrayal trauma is huge, and it has massive ramifications. It's not just painful, it just messes up a whole bunch of life for years and years and years. And so what I hope you begin to realize is, wow, you can heal from this, but it is going to take some work to heal from this. And it's going to take some special tools to heal from this.